Hello everyone and welcome back to Arctic Retro, and in today's video I'm gonna take another look at this Commodore Amiga 1000. I recently had a couple of videos where I did some restoration work on this machine, and the machine works great. However, I said that I wanted to do some improvements or upgrades to it, so this is the first of those. And today I'm gonna try and remedy a small inconvenience with the Amiga 1000. And the inconvenience I'm talking about is this one. Every time you turn on the machine, you have to insert a kickstart diskette, and the machine has to load that into memory. And every time you have to turn off and on the machine, you have to boot with this floppy disk first. So now the kickstart is loaded, and the machine presents the workbench diskette symbol. However, if you reset the machine with the Control Amiga, it remains in memory and you don't have to provide the kickstart floppy disk. So my plan for this video is to install the kickstart into a ROM on this little board, and this board goes into the Amiga on the motherboard and makes it load the kickstart directly from the ROM instead from a floppy disk. As you can see, this small PCB is quite simple. You just need a socket and you need an original kickstart ROM, and then you just place it on the correct place on the motherboard and it should work, hopefully. This video is sponsored by PCBWay, and if you need to have produced some PCBs yourself, like I do regularly, then you should visit the PCBWay.com. If you visit PCBWay.com, you can get an instant quote on very good quality PCBs for affordable prices. And if you have advanced needs for PCB manufacturing, then check out their advanced PCB options at PCBWay.com. I always find that the PCBs I order from PCBWay is of really good quality, and here's a small selection. So actually this kickROM adapter board that I'm going to use today I got from PCBWay.com. Alright, let's get on with the job. I'm going to open the machine and then we can take a look at the motherboard and see where we should put this kickROM adapter. So I have opened the machine, and the thing we need to do is to take out the two memory chips that are already in. These are the chips that the kickstart is loaded into when you start the machine, and then we're gonna replace those with this adapter that goes into that place. I zoomed in a bit so we can see better, but this is how it goes. And then the kickstart ROM goes there, of course. So now we need to remove the motherboard, so there's a bit of unscrewing here first. Besides that, we also need to connect 3 of these connections to various points on the motherboard, and also a few links has to be made, jumpers on the motherboard. I think everything is loose now, so we can try and remove this board. Yep. Normally I don't want to do something like this on a machine like this and do perhaps irreversible damage or something that cannot be reversed, but in this case I'm gonna do it because it's such a useful thing to do, and yeah, not having to have that kickstart diskette all the time that might get damaged or lost. It's a big plus, I think. So I'm gonna start by removing the two chips. Maybe I should wear the ESD strap just in case. Come on. The chips are out, and this was a little bit harder because this was in the way, but yeah, they came out nicely. Seems like there is something that has been underneath there, something spilled. A little bit of contact cleaner. Oops. So now I'm gonna remove the solder from these vias here, because we need to install a socket there. So I'm just gonna use my desoldering station to suck up the solder from this side first, and then we have to take a look at the other side. So I'm just gonna add a little bit liquid flux to help it flow. So let's see now if we can suck up some solder. Yeah, that works. So all except two of these holes came out really easy from the other side. So I'm taking these two remaining from the back side. I don't know why these are so difficult. There's no big ground connection or anything. Gonna try to add a little fresh solder. Yes, that's it. In with a new socket. Doesn't fit. A little bit of bent legs on this socket. So, a little bit of soldering. Take the two corner pins first, and then I just take my hand on the other side and push the socket so it's flush to the board. Now it's time to fit the adapter and finish that, and I'm using these pin headers. Goes into the sockets. You should use these round types and not the large square ones, because they will probably destroy the socket. So I'm just going to take off the amount I need and place it down, and then solder it in the board. Short end up through the PCB. And for this odd socket, you don't actually fill the whole socket. Not easy to get 4 rows of pins through 4 rows of holes, obviously. Especially when the socket makes them flex outwards. It's in, and now I'm gonna solder the pins. Obviously I'm gonna take it off afterwards. That went smooth. And now the socket for the kickstart ROM goes into here, and I already got one ready. So good thing I didn't solder in this socket before I did the pin headers, otherwise it would have been difficult to come down here. Socket is in, however when you push it down it will get very close to these chips. So I'm just gonna trim off whatever I can from the pins of the socket. For the wire connection I'm using this square pin header because then I can use those standard DuPont contacts, or what it's called. I'm just soldering one point first, and I hold my fingers to straighten it. Not on the one I'm soldering. I have done that mistake before, and that hurt. ABC, always be cleaning. I couldn't really find any good recipes for installing this online. I found one, but I actually discovered now that there's a place for 2 resistors and 1 capacitor, so that's probably a smoothing capacitor and maybe 2 pull-ups. Yeah, there's one there too, C2, but I could not find any information whatsoever about what values those are. So I sent a question to Amiga World on Twitter, and they replied that this is 100 nanofarad capacitors and 10k resistors, so that is probably correct, hopefully. So I'm gonna find something to put in there. I don't have SMD components, so I have to find regular components and try to solder on. Only problem, it needs to be quite flat, because otherwise it won't fit very nicely on top of these chips. So let's see now if I can solder in these. So I cut off the legs a little bit and bent them inwards, so yeah, should be easy to solder in like that. Yeah, I think that went okay. Know the rest. Alright, so now that's taken care of, and this looks much tidier and yeah, not very pretty, but I think it's okay. I have inserted the module, and yeah, it fits okay. The capacitor on the underside is touching the chip under, but I think that's okay. So next step is to install the wires that goes from the contact to 3 different places on the PCB, the motherboard. So I was thinking maybe using these connectors, but yeah, I'm not really sure. Maybe I should rather solder bodge wires from the back side of the PCB instead. This will take a lot of room, and yeah, there's a possibility of bad contact. 2 of the wires go to different chips on the motherboard, so one goes to this one, and one wire goes to this 74LS373 chip here, and you actually need to lift one of the pins on each. So to do that, I'm actually going to desolder these 2 chips and place sockets there, so that we can lift the correct pin and solder the wires onto those. Alright, I marked the 2 chips, and I'm going to use my desoldering station to desolder those. That can be a little painful experience on old Amiga boards, but we'll see how it goes. You just need to be very careful not to rip out any traces or damage the motherboard. So that was the first pass, and I can see that I need to go a couple of more rounds on this to get away all the solder. I think most of the solder is gone, and now it's just a matter of trying to get all the legs of the chip loose. You could of course just cut the leg in question on the other side, but then it will be harder to reverse this if you find out you want to reverse it, or if it doesn't work and you have to go back to the way the machine were. So I think the chip is almost loose. Now it's just a matter of try to pry it out as gently as possible and don't use any force that rips out anything. That was it. Oh no. There you see how easy it is to lift the trace. This one got lifted, and the pad is still sitting on the chip. There you see the pad. So this needs to be fixed, and I'm gonna fix that with a little wire, I think. I actually got this repair kit. These are copper traces that you can use instead of the one that you just ripped off. And these have glue on the back side, so I just want to make sure that I get it down through the hole so that it makes contact with the via. Almost like a microsurgery, I can imagine. And then I need to solder it to that via there. There is also a trace going to this pin from the other side, so I can measure the contact between this point and the corresponding point on the other side. Okay, I think that's okay. Yeah, there's contact to the ring inside, and I'm gonna try and measure continuity from this side to the other side. Now the other chip, I'll try to be more careful this time. It's almost out, but still some solder left on this side. Try to suck it up. This one came out a lot easier. Okay, it's out. Let's see if we have any damage. Nope, no lifted traces on this one. Then I'm cleaning up the pads here and make sure all the old solder is gone. Before I solder in the socket, I'm gonna cover that repair, that little pad strip, with some solder mask. I already applied a little bit here, too much. So, and I already had some on, just a thin layer on top. And this has to cure with the UV light. This is of course just to prevent any corrosion to affect that area. I have a little UV light here. I just hold it there for a couple of minutes. Yeah, now that is solid, so That's a good fix. Then in with the sockets, and now I'm gonna pay attention to pin number 4 there, because I need to make sure that I get a good amount of solder through the whole via. The sockets are in, and now I'm gonna place back the chips, and for this one, U6N, we should bend pin 17 out, because that's one of the pins that we're gonna connect to the adapter. Try to bend them and not break them off, so this can be reversible. So like that. And the same for chip U3J. There we're gonna lift pin 1, as I already did. Yeah, sits well into the sockets. Alright, the next step is to solder in 3 wires, and yeah, one wire goes from pin 1 on this chip, the lifted pin, and then there's 2 wires from this chip, but not to the lifted pin, for 2 other pins. And soldering in wires onto pins on a chip can be tricky, so we'll see how that goes. At least with the pin standing out like this, it's easier to solder onto, but I fear the other 2s are more difficult. So I have pre-tinned the wire. Yeah, I think that's solid. The other 2 wires goes from pin 2 and 9. It won't stick. That was one. It's not sticking. I'm gonna try with a thinner wire. Yeah, I think that's it. And then pin 9. Pre-tin that pin. Okay, think we're good there. I'm gonna solder the wires on the back side of this contact. I'm just gonna leave it there, it doesn't hurt. So the red wire goes then to pin 1. Okay, I think we're done with that. Okay, hopefully that will work. Just gonna clean up this mess with the wire and make it look good. Okay, while double checking, I found out that I soldered in this wire on the wrong pin. It should be on pin 3, not pin 2. Pin 2 should be not in use. I need to fix that quickly. Alrighty, we are close to the end of this mod. I am a bit concerned that the module sits too high in the socket, so if it doesn't work, I'm going to install some additional height onto that, but we'll see. Now the next step here is to configure some jumper links, and it's these 5 here. And the way you should configure it is like this. I have drawn a line between how we should do it, and the dotted line are how it is now, so we need to cut those traces. But I'm gonna install pin headers so that I can use removable jumpers instead of soldering those. So I only need to change row 2 and 4, and I'm gonna install 3 pins on those places. Using my desoldering station to remove the solder from the holes. Let's see if we can do that without any damage. Yeah, I got out 5 out of 6. So one was a little bit stubborn, but then I just add a little new solder into that hole while keeping the heat and suction. Yeah, that came out really nicely. Using a desoldering station of course makes everything easier and faster, but if you don't have that, you can always use these cheap solder pumps. They are in some cases just as effective. And using these pin headers of course make it easier to revert the mod if I need to do that later or if it doesn't work. Final bit of soldering, hopefully. Okay, I'm gonna add some color. So this should go there. Oh no, I completely forgot I need to cut the old link. Dang. Well, that's how it is sometimes. You have to redo your work. Okay, let's cut the traces. It's on these two. There's continuity and these two. I don't like this to damage anything, but well, if I'm gonna install this mod, this has to be done. And replacing a cut trace with a jumper, it's not very damaging. So that's removed. Let's check. Yeah, nothing now. Now I can solder back the pin headers. Now we're done and we can place the jumpers correctly. Alright, the modification is done and I'm really hopeful that this works. It was a little bit more work than I thought, but hopefully everything is done correctly now and I'm ready to test. No, there's one thing left, and that's the most important thing. It's kickstart ROM, and I got one here, 3.1 from Amiga Forever. So it's in. Let's test this now. Okay, so now I feel a little bit mixture of anxiety and excitement. Are you ready? Oops. That doesn't look right, does it? Nope, there's nothing. That's a bit of a disappointment. Okay, so we need to troubleshoot a little bit, and before I do that I'm gonna try an old Kickstart 1.2. I think this is from an Amiga 500, maybe that's a better choice. Nope, obviously there is an issue. Well, the first thing I'm gonna do is to raise the module and place it in another socket. So now it should come completely down to the socket, and maybe that was an issue. Nope, still the same. So, okay, I need to go through everything now and check, see if I did a mistake on some level. Okay, I realized I have done a terrible mistake, and many of you have probably screamed at your screen and said no, no, no to the video already. But the thing is, I have placed the module the wrong way. It should be onto these two chips, the odd and the even. And of course now it is completely wrong, so I just have to solder in a new socket, but that isn't a lot of work, so well, just have to do that. So it is supposed to go here. And the picture I've been looking on for the recipe of this mod is correct, of course. I have just completely seen wrong on this. So I had the module attached to the odd and the odd, but it is supposed to go to the odd and the even. So I'm just gonna suck up the solder on these holes and then switch it over. I'll find another socket to solder in. So I just have to cool myself down a little bit after that embarrassment. So sorry about that, but I think still it's better to discover a mistake than having everything done correctly and still not working. So cheers to that. So it actually makes sense now. I was thinking why that module wasn't better fitted and conflicted with the other chips and the floppy drive. But now when it moves further to the left, I think there's less of an issue with that. No, perhaps I have more luck with this. Okay, fingers crossed. I want to see a workbench. Okay, looks promising. Oh, look at that. Now we're talking. Very nice. Now I'm really happy. I was afraid I have screwed this completely up and destroyed the machine and everything, but this looks to be working. I'm gonna hook up the floppy disk drive and see if it loads. Floppy drive is ticking. What is this diskette then? Oh, it's the kickstart floppy. We can't load that when we already have kickstart. I'm not sure what this is. SimCity, I think. Yes, it loads. Success. That is so nice. I'm really happy now that this worked out to be okay. However, the floppy disk drive is still a little bit in conflict. I inserted 3.1 ROM and I'm testing it now. Let's see. No, that didn't work. Maybe that ROM is not possible to use on Amiga 1000. Not really sure. No, it just shows a red screen, so obviously this ROM cannot be used, and what I'm thinking is because that is not a compatible chip. It is a 27C400 EEPROM perhaps, and yeah, I saw something about that couldn't be used with this machine or this mod, but there is a solution for that. I'll investigate a little bit about that, but for now I'm gonna use the 1.2 ROM. I removed the extra socket and that actually fits perfectly now when it is moved to the left, and then the floppy drive should be able to go all the way down, which it does. Well, in fact it doesn't completely fit now, the drive, because just a little bit of the corner here comes up onto the module, so I'm just gonna cut a little bit of that. That doesn't hurt the drive or anything. So that was easy. I just used my Dremel and a cutting disc. If you don't have a Dremel, you can of course use a metal saw, because this is solid steel or iron. Or maybe it's aluminium, I'm not sure, but it was hard anyway. Now it should fit perfectly. Yes, it does. Yeah, I think that should work. There was actually a couple of more modifications I was planning to test. For example, I was thinking maybe this Terrible Fire card could work on this machine. However, as you can see, it needs to be quite a lot up to don't conflict with this module, of course. And then I would need to build up this socket a lot. I don't have those sockets. I think maybe I have one, but I think I need at least two. So that's gonna be in another video, I suppose. I'm also shaving off a little bit of the floppy power contact, a couple of millimeters. Okay, I'm gonna assemble the machine now, and then I will make a little conclusion here. Okay, that was it. The machine is working perfectly and no more need for a kickstart diskette. So, was it worth it? Yes, definitely. I think it was a little bit more work than I expected, and of course I did some mistakes, as you saw. But you always learn from the mistakes, don't you? Alright, so that was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed the content. There is of course a lot of other things I can do to upgrade this machine, but this was it for today's video. So thanks for watching, and hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.